And that's why Dave Ramsey teaches it the way he does, because he knows based on following those 7 baby steps, anybody could be successful.
Yeah.
But just understand, these are principles that, most can really obtain and really live by if you are actually able to follow those. He's teaching hard work and just being diligent, taking care of your family, all these foundational things. So, I definitely appreciate a lot of what he talks about with that.
And like I said before, when we're talking about those foundational principles, they're excellent. It's excellent value in what's being provided. But obviously, we're here to speak to the masses in regards to entrepreneurship.
Hello and welcome to the Prepare to Compete podcast, where we talk all things VA benefits, real estate, entrepreneurship, and more. Kenneth Davis, how you feeling today, my brother?
Oh man, I'm blessed and highly favored. Just ready to get to educating.
Absolutely. Now, we've been educating a lot through all these segments regarding veterans, VA benefits, real estate, and again, we want to talk to you about business and entrepreneurship. And we want to talk about our friend Dave Ramsey and whether his principles actually apply to the veteran community. I've been a fan of Dave Ramsey for a while. He has some very good principles regarding just kind of saving up and building wealth. And we really want to kind of unpack a little bit of that for our veteran community today.
Yeah. And listen, Mr. Ramsey, he is... just kind of giving a little background. He's, again, I would say almost a financial expert, right? Christian-based, and just really loves giving more information in regards to a way to build financial wealth for you and your family, and kind of having understandable principles that's going to get you there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. He have very much so principles. Some of them I believe may be faith-based or at least faith-influenced. And there's some different things that happen in the news that, I've kind of heard, I guess, the social media, YouTube news, right? I guess we're YouTubers right now,
listen,
right?
that's where media comes from. That's where everyone gets their news, right? That's the most clicks. 9 times out of 10, most people aren't in front of the TV anymore getting the news for the most part.
Absolutely. I don't turn on the TV unless I'm watching the Laker game, and usually I gotta work while I'm doing that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've been in tears lately.
Man, they've been doing me wrong, man. But the 49ers are making a good push in the NFL season, so that's helping me have some type of enjoyment in my sports world.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so it kind of started with some young lady that said something regarding Dave Ramsey being, whether he was for the black community or not, and that made some waves. And of course, Anthony O'Neill, which he actually used to appear on the Dave Ramsey show, he made a video about it. So it actually had me kind of take heed to, what was going on with that situation. And I saw, other YouTubers make some different videos and have some commentary about it. And we're not here to kind of debate the points that they did, but it really just kind of made us really think a little bit, right? And then we have certain conversations all the time about building wealth, what's the best strategies. And even us, we don't have the same exact opinion on how to do it, right? So there's not one strategy that fits all. And, I think that's the crux of it that kind of everybody needs to understand. And, we want to just kind of introduce some of the things that Dave Ramsey says, because, especially even with the veteran community, he talks about VA loans and how that's so terrible and all this type of stuff. And it's like, yeah, let's kind of unpack that, and let's kind of let the public know what we feel and, some feedback that we have.
Yeah, and truth be told, right, a lot of it is, I think when we're always talk, I think it's a lot of trigger words, I would say, right, or high intensity verbiage, generational wealth and wealth building and different things, different terminology. It's always going to be about, at the end of the day, whatever your, specialty is or your expertise. I think loving that and loving the people that you service and also loving the community that you're surrounding is ultimately going to get you in the position that you desire for the most part in some way, shape, or form. Right, but when we go about that way, understanding the principles that's aligned that Mr. Ramsey states, and again for veterans as well, there's multiple ways that you can even jump different steps in regards to what the principles are, just through military service. But we'll talk about that soon here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So so to kind of unpack it, right? Dave Ramsey has 7 baby steps, right, to build wealth, and we agree with a lot of them, or at least I agree with a lot of them, especially when you get to that end point of being able to actually give back, right, and doing that, but. How you get there, like, to each his own, right? In the sense of, do you pay off your house totally, having a certain amount in savings and, not utilizing credit cards and different things like that. He preaches a lot of that. I think that can work very well. I would say everything that he kind of teaches is very good idealistic principles, right? But when you talk about business owners, for example, a lot of times credit is king, for us business owners, in a sense to just be able to leverage ourselves and be able to do things that, hey, I got $10,000, but I can get $100,000 worth of credit, so let me leverage that to run my business and do other things that's going to create revenue, right? But when you're talking about the basic individual, when they're utilizing credit, oftentimes they're just going to buy the new iPhone, buy a big screen TV and, a Gucci bag or something, and they're not necessarily utilizing it to leverage to build wealth, right? Yeah. So I think that what really becomes the issue, the crux of the issue. It's like, it's not necessarily that credit is all bad, it's just definitely when you use it for liabilities and not assets, then that becomes the problem. And also, in the culture a lot lately, there's been some different rumblings of what an asset and what a liability is, in the sense of people being able to leverage cars as assets now because they're going to go put it on Turo to rent it out, or they're going to buy this rental property and put it on Airbnb, different things like that. And now that Airbnb is failing, that so-called asset became a liability because without the revenue from Airbnb, it's not cash flowing anymore, and different things like that. So I understand what Dave Ramsey teaches about, because he prevents people from getting themselves caught in that.
Yeah, no, true indeed. And I definitely agree to that in regards to being able to navigate on how not to get caught into that cycle, because that cycle is very dangerous. That cycle could make you feel like you're over water, and underwater. And if you ever been in as a business owner, or just a everyday person who is working a 9 to 5, which is great as well. If you're going through that process and feeling underwater, I will tell you right now, that type of anxiety and that type of distress is not for the faint at heart, and it's very stressful for any person, veteran or not. So.
Absolutely, yeah, it definitely is. So now, you alluded to a little bit ago regarding veterans being able to be very well positioned, right, when it comes to building wealth, because obviously, a lot of veterans join military service, right out of high school or even in their early 20s. So they're starting to establish a lot of wealth building tools early on, as far as establishing a lot of work skills, right? Life skills, starting to kind of build for their retirement early on, establishing a family, doing certain things, being able to have access to use the VA loan if they so do please to do so, which is very unique from the normal civilian, right? Because you literally, you can have a military service member that joins the service when they're 18, they're getting out of service after 20 years and they're not even 40 yet, right? And they already have a 20-year retirement from the military. They come work another career, and by the time they're 60, they have 2 retirements, right? Yeah. So, we're talking about, as far as the veteran community, a whole different ball game of being able to build wealth and get themselves established.
Yeah, and now and a lot of that, and this is, we're talking about the current veteran, current daytime. Obviously, we understand that there's been switches and changes in regards to retirement plans and different things in regards to military service, but we're just kind of speaking about the general, right? So when you have those different life skills and when you have those different work skills or skill sets just in general, being able to transition them over and impinge them in within the civilian sector, well, being able to do that can position yourself and position you as a viable work candidate. You can be able to get one, better jobs, right? Two, you can actually have a higher income 9 times out of 10 because the skill set you're able to offer, right? A lot of people do not have the skill sets that you have. And understanding that foundation, a lot of employers are willing to hire a veteran because one could be potentially more qualified, but also being more qualified, you have the foundational skills and understanding what you would need to do of being a consistent employee. And in the military, consistency is something that is keen. Whether if you're on deployment or what have you, or you're 9 times out of 10, you will do the same thing that you did yesterday. If there's nothing like other jobs and stuff, obviously, but you're waking up at a certain time, you're getting off at a certain time, you're doing certain jobs, you have the same things that you're doing every single day. And it's hard to be able to build that consistency in most people. So having that access or having that understanding of the foundation will put you at a better position to be able to be employed at a higher skilled position.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, so now understanding what benefits our veterans have as far as starting off their career early and different things of that nature. Now, what are some of your opinions about those 7 baby steps that my guy Mr. Ramsey has going on here?
Man, I actually really love the statement baby steps, okay? And let's talk about the first one, right? The first one of the 7 baby steps would be able to save $1,000. Totally agree. If you do not have $1,000 in your bank account for just an emergency or something that you need to quickly deploy of capital, you have a problem. Okay, because you don't want to live in a position of scarcity. And what I mean by that, you don't want to live where you cannot be able to deploy $1,000 when need be if there's any type of emergent issue, right? But I totally agree to that. That for me is bare minimum. You should have that, okay? Now, when we're talking about number 2, right? Number 2 is interesting because now we're talking about paying off all debt. When we're paying off all the debt, it depends. It really depends because everyone's debt tolerance is it's different. Everyone's debt tolerance is a little bit different. So with everyone's debt tolerance being a little bit different, there could be someone paying $15,000 off versus paying $250,000 off in debt. 2 totally different types of lifestyles that they have to live to be able to get there. So, but also with this generation as well, I must say that we're living in a generation that most people have an absorbent amount of student loans. So with having that type of debt that's lingering on your behalf for the rest of your life, which most people aren't going to be able to pay those off in a timely manner, it's very hindering in regards to your progression, I would say. But some, it's not. Some will go work 2, 3, 4 jobs if need be to get things paid off. But what type of life are you living out of that as well? So that's a concern for myself. But veterans, when we're talking about veterans, a lot of these active duty members or veterans could, again, as I mentioned before, have a higher earning position, but not only a higher earning position, but also having access to other capital resources. Resource centers to help you to be able to develop a business, get a job, and so many other ways to be able to get that, basically get to these baby steps faster, quicker, but also put yourself in a better position to financial stability.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm glad you touched on student loans. So, obviously we know with our veterans, right, if they become 100% service connected, you can get the student loans forgiven. But however, let's say you're not 100% service connected and you're not on a journey to do that. How can you get your student loans forgiven, right? There are some other alternatives, right? They have the public service loan forgiveness program. Oftentimes, a lot of veterans go and after service, they get a government job, right? So if you're working for a government or nonprofit for at least 10 years, while you're paying off your student loans, 120 payments, you can actually get those student loans forgiven within that 10-year time period. And they've opened up some other programs as well if you don't work for government or even nonprofit, because in that public loan forgiveness program, you could actually work for a nonprofit as well. But let's say you're not doing either of those. You can actually get those forgiven after 20 or 25 years of making consecutive payments. So oftentimes just, speak to your student loan servicer and that sort of thing. Obviously, I know 20, 25 years is a whole lot more than 10, right? But, it's something, right? And it's there. And, but this kind of helps, right? When you're talking about strategy. Like, let's say if somebody has $150,000 worth of student loans and they were thinking between a government or nonprofit sector job and a private job, for example, even myself, for example, I worked in higher education. I could have worked for a private a college or university, or I could work for a state institution. Well, that state institution allowed me to qualify for the public service loan forgiveness program, right? So I might take a little bit less from them than I would that private institution because, I have an exorbitant amount of student loan debt. So I'm taking that job with that in mind of being able to get that paid off within that 10-year period of me just making those minimum, very, very small payments.
No, 100%, 100%.
Definitely, Kenneth, I appreciate all those talking points and just kind of helping our veteran community really understand, what's going on and how to accumulate wealth. And, one of the things that I've always really took pride in knowing is that you cannot win by cheating the process, and everyone can't sit in the front row, right? So now we're going to kind of unpack what that means through this conversation here and just really kind of delve into it a little bit more, while talking about Dave Ramsey, but talking about financial literacy and everything in general terms, right? Because he has some amazing principles, right? And his main thing is about that, right? It's about not cheating the process, right? Setting up some solid principles and some solid foundations to really build wealth and grow and, eventually be able to give. And he's literally setting principles that anybody can follow. Right. So whether you are a business owner, and obviously if you're a business owner, you might be a little bit more willing to assume risk. Right. Now, if you're somebody that is just working a regular job, you want to be a little bit more risk averse. Right. And that's what he's teaching. And what we have, and I think we talked about it in another episode, is that, again, some people try to cheat the process and some people, sell a dream, right? You have a lot of people talking about financial literacy online. They selling a dream of wealth because they want you to buy their course, right? And, Dave Ramsey is, he has probably courses and products, but even with that, he's selling something that's obtainable for everyone, right? And, people can criticize that, but when I'm talking about everyone can't sit in the front row, I want to really give you guys the visual of that, okay? Because when you think about it, let's say you're trying to sit front row at your favorite basketball game, right? There's only so many tickets. No matter how much money you feel like you accumulate, they're going to keep raising the bar of those ticket prices so that only the top 1% can be able to afford those. Yeah. Because it's only access to that. So we have a lot of online gurus selling courses and selling, you could be a millionaire, just buy my course and do this, do that. And Dave Ramsey is saying a lot different because he knows and understands that everyone can't sit in that front row. Once you get $1 million, that's going to become the new middle class, right? And we're seeing that in real time right now with just so many things happening with inflation right now. During COVID, a lot more people had access to money. So what happened? Now every prices got inflated, gas prices, eggs, people talk a lot about that and different things of that nature. It's like we're literally seeing that, right? And there was a movie a while ago, Justin Timberlake was in it. I think it was called In Time or something.
Yeah.
A movie, I like it.
It was a great movie.
But it's literally about that. Now they use money, they use time instead of money as the currency. But it literally lets you know that no matter how much time somebody got because somebody wealthy gave it away or you figured out how to get more time, stuff just came more expensive. So it became more expensive to buy your time, right? So, and that's why Dave Ramsey teaches it the way he does, because he knows based on following those 7 baby steps, anybody could be successful. And I think that's the best takeaway from there. No matter what type of criticism you have regarding the process of what you like and don't like. And it's very fun for debates, right?
Yeah.
But just understand, these are principles that, most can really obtain and really live by if you are actually able to follow those. He's teaching hard work and just being diligent, taking care of your family, all these foundational things. So, I definitely appreciate a lot of what he talks about with that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I said before, when we're talking about those foundational principles, they're excellent. It's excellent value in what's being provided. But obviously, we're here to speak to the masses in regards to entrepreneurship, right? So it's a lot more. Those principles, I believe, will be a lot more risk adverse when trying to step out on faith. No pun intended, right? But step out on faith. Yeah. So you spoke so eloquently when you were talking about building wealth for the veteran community, and you just can't take the stairs, right? So understanding that. A lot of business owners and a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to put themselves in position to surpass those steps, right? And be able to be at the end goal. But we understand that takes a lot more hard work, not necessarily hard work, a lot more time and a lot more mental toughness and gumption to be able to get through those days, because there's some lonely days, there's some really hard lessons to be learned throughout that journey. So when we're talking about the veteran community, I always want to make sure that we shift that conversation so veterans and active duty military can understand in the sense of how it relates to them. They can be able to take those baby steps and be able to maximize those at a high level degree. Some veterans or some active duty members, they'll go on deployment for months, even years. And when you go out on these deployments, you have to realize that is the opportunity to advance your life so much faster and further than the regular population. And why I say that is because, listen, there's not much to do in certain these geographical locations in the world, right? I've been to places that have had a ton of fun, right? But then and had a great time, but then also been to places where, I'm probably going to sleep in. I'm probably going to just catch up on some rest because there's not too many places or things that we can do that I haven't already seen. Okay, definitely if I'm going to a same repeat place, at that point you can be able to save your money, right? And also invest it, pay off debt, and actually speed up that process. And again, definitely if you're single, if you're a single person out on deployment. But if you obviously have a family, you have obligations you need to take care of. But with that being said, you still have the opportunity to save a bit more because you're probably getting paid with CPay more if you're in the military, in the Navy. There's different other pays that you're able to receive, whether if it's jump pay, SEALs get extra money, pilots. There's so many different parties of the military can actually put themselves in a better position of life before they get out in the civilian sector, where you can be able to advance yourself through those principles. So I think that's great. At the end of the day, I think it's all going to be relevant. But what I will tell you is make sure that relevancy is going to advance your life and advance your family.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because just have to make sure you're doing what's best for you. And that's the kind of the main crux of the conversation is that you can look for people for advice. You can look for reading books and certain principles, but you have to take a little bit from everybody and come up with what works for you, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be the same. I look at when I purchased my first home in 2014, and it was like $150,000, and I tell that story now. It's like, oh man, you lucky, you made so much money, this, that, and that. But it's like, well, when I purchased that home during that time, I wasn't really taking a big risk. That's what they were worth at the time,
Yeah.
And I just benefited from the equity appreciation, right? And I think that's where the Dave Ramsey principles might go astray for some people, especially when we're talking about investing in real estate, especially with the VA loan, because no down payment and all those sorts of things, but it allows you to start building wealth a lot sooner. I'm not a veteran, but I was able to utilize that FHA loan, which had mortgage insurance and all of that. But once I sold that house and made $250,000, I wasn't worried about that little extra $5,000 that I had to get in for that, right?
Yeah.
And with the VA loan, you don't even have that. There's no mortgage insurance, no down payment requirement. And in a lot of cases, you're going to have a lower interest rate, right? So, but do you want to make sure that you have better credit? Of course, yeah, absolutely. Having better credit is going to help you in a multitude of ways, whether it's just the interest rate on that home purchase, but more than that, looking at other aspects of your life on how much interest you're paying on your monthly credit card debt, right?
Yeah,
how much interest you're paying on your car payment, because ultimately that goes into your affordability for your home, because they're looking at your debt to income ratio, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a higher car payment because you're paying 20% interest because of a low credit score, then now you could finance less home because you have higher payments there. So having a good credit score is definitely something that you want to strive for, but the difference is that you don't want those things to get in the way of you making progress, right? Figure out a way to make that progress in spite of having lower credit, in spite of this, in spite of that. Now, I understand that it's like, well, okay, why did you have lower credit scores, right? Or were you not paying your bills, this, that, and that? Because, I'm here to honestly and frankly tell you is that if you're someone that has bad credit because you recently weren't paying your bills and you went through credit repair, most likely you're going to recycle those same habits, and ultimately you may end up losing that property anyway, right? So while Dave is teaching you to save and pay 20% and 15 years down, I'm not going that far, but I would say practice good financial habits so that you can accumulate assets and you can keep it, right? Because if you have bad financial habits, you're going to lose those assets anyway. And that's kind of the gist of where he's going with those recommendations. But it doesn't have to be that extreme, right? To say just wait 15-year mortgage, 20% down. It doesn't have to be that extreme, right? So, and especially with the VA loan, I think the last point I want to make before you chime in on that is that, he doesn't consider the point of service connection, right? Because he always talks about the VA loan having fees, and he has some different opinions on what we market in the sense of the VA loan having lower interest rates and certain things. And I would challenge someone to kind of do the research on that a little bit more, but you got to be comparing apples to apples, right? So you have to be looking at somebody with the same credit score, with the same debt to income ratio, and all the same factors, and compare if they got a VA loan versus a conventional loan, what the interest rate is. But if you're just comparing two different people and somebody got a 620 and a 720, it's like, well, yeah, it's going to be a little bit different, right? Because even with the VA loan, if you got a 620 versus a 720, the interest rate is going to be different, but it's going to be with that, when you're comparing that 620 for a VA loan versus a 620 for FHA or a 620 for conventional, now that's when it's like, well, now when you're comparing that, yes, the VA loan is lower when you're looking at things in that common standard. And the other point there is that, again, with the service connection, if you're at least 10% service connected, you don't pay the VA loan funding fee. And I don't know about you, Kenneth, but I feel like, most veterans that qualify for a VA loan. Pretty much all veterans that qualify for a VA loan because they have a general discharge or honorable discharge. They served our country, and they deserve to not have to pay a funding fee, right? And they definitely deserve to be at least 10% service connected because something happened over their time of serving our country that qualifies them for at least 10%. And if you're a veteran out there, you're not at least 10% service connected, come talk to us at Veterans for Veterans. I would like to make that our goal for you to be at least 10% service connected so that you can qualify to buy a home using that VA loan without worrying about a funding fee ever. I think that would be a great gift to give everyone.
No, true indeed. Definitely with the holidays coming around the corner. Just throw the Santa hat on and call it Santa.
Absolutely. I threw the blazer on, now I'm about to throw the red on in the next one.
No, but that's great. That's great information. Listen, it's just, like you said, I think everyone has different strategic plans. Make sure that that's the right plan for you. But again, utilizing those certain principles are going to get you where you need to go. But I'm back to obviously our segment where we're talking about entrepreneurship. We always want to kind of impinge what anything that we're discussing in regards to that for the veterans, right? So with that being said, you spoke about being having good credit, right? I thought it was very fitting to discuss having good credit, right? To be able to make larger purchases in your business or to be able to fund your business in certain aspects. But also, I think also when we're talking about that, the good financial habits. Those good financial habits will ultimately lead you into other areas that you may not have maybe even known because you've been invited somewhere because of good credit. Okay? Everyone's not invited to an American Express party, right? Or different things of that nature. Not saying I am or anything of that nature, but what I'm saying is you want to have those good financial habits to put you in a position to be able to make larger purchases or do things for you and your family that you may not have thought. And credit is one way of utilization, but you want to make sure that you utilize it smartly, definitely in a business format. Most business owners are always looking for capital or looking for credit or looking for ways to start a business based upon credit. I seen a gentleman. I was watching a clip of a gentleman that said you don't necessarily need funding or credit to start a business. And when you pull back